G'day there guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. I do hope you enjoy today's episode. Now sit back, relax, chug a prawn to the Barbie, and let's get right into it. Posted by user NoDecision913, titled, Am I the asshole for leaving my boyfriend when his ex died, leaving him to take care of his kids full time? I, female 26, have been with my boyfriend, male 30, for 2 years now. He has 2 kids, male 6, female 4, with his ex-girlfriend. She moved to another state with the kids to be near her family when they broke up 3 years ago. He got them on vacations only. I knew all of this when I started dating him. I had no issue with this, but told him from the get-go that I can't be a parent. I was parentified by my mum, and I raised my 5 younger siblings. The oldest of them is 6 years younger to me, and I had to change his diapers and feed him formula. I went to low contact with my family when I left home at 18. I can't imagine doing that again. He was also snipped after his last kid, and he didn't want more kids. He was fine with me not wanting to be a parent and just be a bonus adult. We were taking it slow, and I didn't even meet his kids until a few months back. We took a trip together and got along great. Things changed 2 months ago when his ex died. The kids were really crushed as they moved into his house. We were not living together, but he asked if I could move in to help him out, just for a while. I couldn't refuse, and stayed, but I started hating it again. I hated how clingy the kids became, and how much responsibility I had. I did my best, but my mental health started getting worse every day. I didn't even get help from my boyfriend because he was struggling too. Last week was especially bad since the younger kid had a cold and wanted me to nurse her back to health exactly as her mum would have. The soup wasn't the same, the song and story wasn't told the same way, I didn't hug her the way her mum did, etc., were some of the long list of complaints. I know she's grieving, but I was already working from home and stressed too. When I told my boyfriend he should take over, he said they need me more since I'm a mum. It triggered me. I didn't want to be held to a mum's responsibilities again. I told him I can't do this. He said that I needed to stop acting like a child and step up. I then understood that if I stayed, my whole life would be like this, never measuring up, never being enough, and all the responsibilities of a mum. I left yesterday. I moved in with a friend. My boyfriend, well, ex-boyfriend, is blasting my phone calling me an asshole. Am I the asshole? I really disagree with his actions in this instance, and I understand that he's frustrated and angry about this, but it's entirely his fault that this happened. It just strikes me as like another one of those instances where you're with someone that doesn't want kids, and all of a sudden you guys get pregnant, and instead of an abortion, you're like, no, actually just keep the kid, it's for me. You're more than welcome to dip and sign over your parental rights after the kid is born because I know that's what you want, because I'm so sure that you're going to change your mind once the kid is here, and then the kid is there and they're so Pikachu face surprised when that person dips. I know I'm rambling, and I know that circumstances are vastly different between scenarios like that, but you can't just expect someone that said, I don't want kids, I've already done all that is not on my agenda anymore, to then turn around and be cool with kids once there are kids in the equation. And doubly so, you can't just start screaming obscenities at them and saying that they're the problem when you can't step up yourself. And you're trying to force them to take all of this responsibility, which is not theirs to bear. Like if this is the way that he's going to act towards you while you're on your way out the door, it's probably better that you've dipped now, but I'd even argue that it might have been better that you dipped earlier because the proper response in a situation like this would be groveling and apologizing and admitting what he did is wrong, and that this responsibility and you moving in never should have happened in the first place. But instead, he's screaming abuse at you. It just really doesn't sit right with me personally. I'm absolutely not the asshole in this situation, OP. In the comments, from this message says, not the asshole. They don't need a new mum, they need their father to step up. Yes, and he's asking her to step up? Dude, come on, they're your kids, not OP's. Yeah, I was on the fence up until that point. She isn't their mum, she isn't even his wife. She isn't even a particularly long-term girlfriend. He was already asking a lot of her. Everyone in this story is struggling, but OP made it clear she didn't want to be a parent. She knew her limits and expressed them clearly. She already went well beyond them to help. Definitely not the asshole. He said I needed to stop acting like a child and step up. OP, you're 26 and that ain't your kid. You're not even married. Why did I have to scroll so far down to see this comment? They aren't even married. They were not living together. She had barely even met the kids. OP's relationship had an expiration date the moment the kid's mum died, but she was kind and pitched in to help out temporarily anyway. Living together was only supposed to be temporary. Dating is an audition for a more serious commitment. Even if they'd been living together when mum died, these kids aren't her responsibility. Your ex-boyfriend just failed his audition. Quote, when I told my boyfriend he should take over, he said they need me more since I'm a mum. Not the asshole, and good on you for moving out. You shouldn't have to be unwillingly parentified a second time. It does look like he planned on making you the main parent instead of himself. It's literally what turned me from no assholes here to not the asshole. He just declared her a mum by default of dating him. Didn't even bother to ask. I can't imagine being as shameless as this dude. She's on the money when she said, I understood if I stayed, my whole life would be like this. Same here, and I'm sure he knew what her history was with her family, and he still decided he could foist parenting someone else's kids on her again. Selfish doesn't even begin to describe this. I read temporary and helping out, and knew that it was absolutely bullshit. There was a reason his ex had the kids full-time, and he only had them holidays. He 100% was grooming OP to be his ex's replacement. It makes me so mad. He should be the one to step up and raise his own kids. God forbid he traps some poor, less experienced woman. People like this ought to come with warning signs. Update. So the last few days were chaotic and full of confusion to say the least. I didn't answer a lot of the questions, and I'm sorry to all of you for that. I was not in the right state of mind and was overwhelmed by all the replies. As is human nature, all the reasons that I was an asshole and a cold-hearted beer messed with my mind a lot. To answer a few questions, 1. I didn't leave without saying goodbye. I had told the kids goodbye. I didn't want to cause too much strain and said that I was leaving for a while for work. I did just tell my ex I was leaving. I couldn't take another round of stop acting like a child and grow up. 2. I don't normally work from home. He asked me to stay home with his daughter, stating that he doesn't know how to take care of a sick kid. I hate you! She really was sick at first, and I went along with it, but he refused to even help in the evenings. How do you not know how to look after a sick kid? Go to Google, mate. Come on. 3. Most of your assumptions about him was true in the sense that I almost always ended up looking after the kids alone. He rarely did his part. It was either he was exhausted, he couldn't face them, he didn't know how to deal with their grief, or just I did it better. It was not what we agreed upon when I moved in to help. I was supposed to help him, show him the ropes, but I ended up feeling like a single mum. 4. As parent, he got custody. His ex's parents said that was for the best since they were already retired. They did not want to raise the kids. Anyway, I was able to move back into my earlier apartment. Thankfully, the landlord hadn't rented it to anyone else. I did have a lease, but I didn't want to keep paying rent and had come to an agreement with the landlord to sublet the apartment for a month to month until I'm back. Being back in my space, I feel much calmer. I also met up with my ex. After the initial blasting, he called me yesterday to ask if we could meet. I wanted to get more clarity too, and so I agreed. He came over, as he finally got a babysitter, and we had a good talk. He apologized for everything that he said and demanded I do. He said it was a big, unexpected change for him too. He was scared and didn't know how to raise them, being a vacation dad. Having children home every day and thinking this was how it's going to be for the rest of his life, his words, had him terrified. I said I understood, but I cannot be a mum to those kids. I cannot take up his responsibilities. I want to help, but not in this capacity. I needed boundaries. He said he expected as much, and he agrees that he should never have asked so much of me. He asked if I could help him still, though, that the kids missed me and asked when I would be back. He needed me. And I refused. I told him I will help him, I will come around sometimes when I can, as a friend of Dad's would, but I wouldn't move back in and I won't be a stepmom. He asked if I was breaking up with him. The truth is, I don't know. I do love him, but it won't work out in the long term, and everything he did and said is still raw on my mind. I said as much to him. I can't be in a committed relationship with him. I won't go anywhere. I will help and support as much as I can, but as a friend, I guess we're ending that relationship. I met his kids this morning. I went over there with some pancakes. They asked when I was coming back to live with them, and I told them I had my own home to take care of, but I'll visit them when I can. While surprised, they seemed to be accepting of the situation. They had questions, of course, but accepted that I'll just be Daddy's friend. His daughter asked if I could still be her best friend. I agreed. I guess that won't be too hard. She gave me a hug before he took them to school and daycare, and I actually feel so much better too. This was a role I can deal with. I don't know if it's the right way. I hope it works. Thank you all for your replies and guidance. In the comments, a green sandcastle says, "Wow, decided to check on you and here this is. I have serious problems with how he just foisted the labor on anyone but himself. But I'm glad you're working on what really are your terms. Wishing you the best and for those kids." Yeah, I understand that it was unexpected and scary for him too, but he should have done the majority of the parenting himself and only asked for assistance. It's like he expected the woman to take care of his kids because that's normal. Not okay at all to me as a man and a father. I think OP handled it very well considering the circumstances. Him wanting an apology from OP is so crazy. That means he still doesn't really understand the problem and how wrong he was. I especially hated how he negged and guilt-tripped her into doing his parenting for him. Grow up. Stop acting like a child. When he was the one who needed to grow up and step up. What a manipulative bellend. Yes, exactly. Manipulative is the right word. Projecting and gaslighting. If I would say what I really think of him, I would be banned. Makes you wonder if any of that had to do with why he and the kid's mother separated. Also explains why he only had them for vacations instead of a more even split. Amazing way to walk away from that crappy situation. I'm impressed with how mature and smoothly you handled that. Great job. I was so scared when she got to the part where he asked her to come back, and then bam! She stood up for herself and refused. I love how she prioritized her own well-being throughout this whole ordeal. Too often, women are forced into a role of motherhood simply because men are too lazy or selfish to step up. I'm cheering OP on. She handled this perfectly. Those poor kids. Damn it, people, don't have kids if you aren't willing to raise them. And that includes OP's parents. Parents who parentify are ass. I agree. Taking care of kids is going to be a task, and if you can't be bothered to take care of kids, simply don't have them if you can't bother to raise them right. Yeah, I don't really like the ending of this story. Just me personally, I know it seems heartless to many, but I would completely separate myself from that situation. To me, the words of wisdom in my head just continue to echo of, when someone shows you their true face, believe them. If someone can take an inch, they will take a mile. I know OP realizes that he's in such a vulnerable state right now and is inept. I don't think her going back there is the right thing to do because he will just repeat what he's done in the past and it'll be like a frog in boiling water. You won't notice how many more responsibilities you're taking on over time and how much more is being expected of you because it is going to be so gradual. Of course, that may not be what happens in the future. I may just be a doomer, someone that just thinks the worst of people, but it's the most likely thing to happen in my opinion. It was such a short relationship, there are no kids between you and him, there is no marriage, you guys weren't even living together. Just cut your losses and run, OP. Or don't. But I wish you all the best on that in the future. Our next post is by user CapableElephant6355, titled, 2 tampons may mean that my marriage is over. I, 29 female, have been with my husband, 30 male, for 7 years, married for 4. I've never had reason to suspect that he was unfaithful to me, or even remotely dissatisfied with our marriage. He likes to joke that we're still living the honeymoon phase, nearly 5 years and 2 kids in. I wouldn't have questioned that, or him, were it not for a surprise I found in his car last month. When buckling our daughter into her car seat, I noticed something slotted between the cushions. I pulled it out and saw that it was a tampon. This wouldn't have been so unusual had I not had an IUD that has stopped my period for the past year, and I didn't even recognize the wrapper style. I brought it to my husband's attention, and he didn't seem to understand what it was, let alone why I was holding it, until I told him where I'd found it and why I was almost certain that it wasn't mine. He shrugged and said that it probably belonged to his coworker Fiona. It's not uncommon for my husband to carpool to lunch with his coworkers, and we're both fairly close to Fiona and her husband. So I figured that it was entirely possible the tampon had slipped out of her purse whenever he had driven with them or offered her a ride. No big deal. I put it out of my mind until we had dinner with Fiona and her husband a couple of weeks later. I had sincerely wanted to believe my husband. I just couldn't get over the way that it had been tucked in the seat and how my husband had seemed not to have any regard for it whatsoever. Maybe playing dumb? I don't know. I did something that I now feel kinda crazy for doing. I faked an emergency and asked Fiona if she had any tampons while we were out together. She handed me one almost identical to the tampon that I'd found in our back seat, and I breathed a sigh of relief. So the tampon there was probably the same tampon here, and in all likelihood there was an innocent explanation as to why it had been left in the back seat in the first place. I thought I'd seen the last of the out-of-place feminine hygiene products until I found another tampon this morning, this time in my sock drawer. I feel physically ill at the thought of my husband having an affair, and even more nauseated at the thought that the woman might have left the tampons out for me to find. If it was my husband's coworker, why would she give herself away by offering me one the other night? In any other situation, I would want to talk to my husband about this, but I feel too sick and embarrassed to approach him with what I've found. What should I do? In the comments, I've had a period 30 years and never put a tampon in a sock drawer. Trust your gut and get cameras. OP replies, neither have I. I've considered so many explanations for the tampons that wouldn't implicate my husband, but none of them make sense really. I'm terrified to set up a camera if it means confirming what I suspect right now. Has Fiona been over to your house and had time to plant the tampon? OP replies, she's been to our house many times and vice versa. To my knowledge, she wasn't over any time in the past week. So if she planted that second tampon, she had to have found a window of time when I wasn't home. Anytime she and her husband visit, we all stay downstairs, and you'd have to really go out of your way to make it to our bedroom, i.e., around our dogs, over the safety gate, past the other bedrooms. Not saying it's impossible, but definitely tricky to do on a quick bathroom break, I would guess. How old are your kids? Could they have found a tampon and put it in a random place? OP replies, 2 and almost 4. Both have a mischievous streak, so I didn't want to rule out the possibility of one of them moving stuff around, but I can't imagine how they'd get their hands on one, possibly 2 random tampons that I never bought. Barbie Girl 02 says, OP, before you confront your husband, get more evidence. I cannot tell you how many times my dad or my brother just chuck my things in a random drawer because they don't know where they belong, but they still want to help. If the 2 previous tampons, Cars and Fiona's, are not 100% accounted for, I would say there is a chance the one you found in your drawer is one of those. However, it is suspicious. If I were you, before planting a camera that would completely break your husband's trust in the case he's not cheating, I would start becoming more unpredictable with my movements. Come back early from work when you can go for a girls' night, but come back way earlier than usual. If he is cheating, chances are you will catch him. Best answer I've read thus far. I honestly think there is a logical answer here, and if this were my friend telling me, I would say it's probably not cheating. Of course, this is Reddit, so who the hell knows, but changing up your movements and patterns is much better than immediately setting up a nanny cam in your own bedroom. Jesus Christ. What did you do with the one that she gave you? This? Any chance it's the one that you got from Fiona at dinner? Right. Did you absent-mindedly leave it in your room or your bathroom, and your husband picked it up and tossed it in your sock drawer? I mean, check on him for your peace of mind, sure, but cheating is not the only possible explanation. Do you really think they are having period sex in the back of your car with the car seat? Come on. Or put it in your pocket and it went through the wash and ended up in your sock drawer, or got set on top of the dresser and then got bumped into the drawer. Also, as someone who's just found sunglasses in the bread drawer because my toddler picks up anything she sees, this is also much more common than people think. How often do you accidentally leave tampons somewhere? Sounds like someone's looking to cause an issue between you and the husband. 1000%. Purse, car, under a sink, in a drawer, but in a car seat and a sock drawer? Those are messages. Like, I wasn't going to jump to assumptions on the back seat necessarily. I have a Mary Poppins purse, so if it fell over in the back seat, I could definitely leave a lippy/tampon/hair clip behind and probably not notice since I have so much other crap. And yeah, I've been in offices where one person drives if we actually leave to eat somewhere. I was usually the driver, so yeah. It would be a little suspicious in the back seat, but not irrefutable. Not my tampon in my sock drawer? Oh, hell nah. Backseat doesn't really mean anything if she throws her purse in the back or even sits back there because there are 3 people in the car. But in the sock drawer? Someone wanted it to be found. Update. Contemplating every possible source of 2 tampons has been my personal hell for the past few weeks, but I wanted to share an update. Shortly after posting on here, I told my sister what happened. The tampon in the back seat and the sock drawer, my husband's cluelessness, the tampon from Fiona, and all the things that I suspected but didn't want to believe. We compared tampons, save for the back seat one that I had already discarded, and they were a match, just in different absorbencies. I hadn't left either in a place where my husband or daughters would have found them and moved them around. My daughters didn't know what they were or where they had come from. My sister was convinced it was Fiona, either screwing my husband, screwing with me, or both. Direct confrontation of either party still seemed like a bad idea, so she suggested inviting Fiona and her husband over for our Labor Day barbecue. Unfortunately, they already had plans. My sister and I agreed that it was too soon for cameras without any other evidence, so it was just a waiting game from there. Watching my husband for any changed behavior, there was none, our house for any misplaced/foreign items, there were none, and even the girls for any new friends they might have met. My sister's husband was adamant on this last point, and partly why he was inclined to believe that the tampons were harmless. If anything had been happening in or around our home, he said that it would have been nearly impossible to keep it from me and from the girls, since my husband was the one taking them to and from daycare and most other activities during the week. I felt a good bit of consolation in that. It wasn't until my younger daughter, 2 years old, came down with something last week that I felt any differently. I wanted to be the one home taking care of her, but my husband insisted that I stay at work while he stayed home with her. I was okay with that. My sister and her husband figured that it was a good sign that he would take the time off at a moment's notice, and at that point, we were all already beginning to put the tampon fiasco behind us. But by the 3rd or 4th day, I was happy to see a nearly healthy child and a husband who was helping see her through it. Toward the end of that week, though, I came home to something strange. The toddler that I'd left that morning in an old PJ set was now dressed in a onesie that I'd never seen before, with a tiny clip in her hair. I can't say that I have the sharpest memory, but I have a pretty good sense of what my kids wear on a day-to-day basis, and particularly what kinds of clothes they wear. I'd sworn off the full-length sleep suits with snaps across the front long before we'd ever had our second. The long snaps are just a pain in the ass, and a no-go for efficient diaper changes in my opinion. It's just not something that I would dress her in, and my husband knows as much. He doesn't plan for or buy the girls' clothes, and he certainly doesn't accessorize them. So I was bewildered, and kind of floored at the thought of someone around our sick child without my knowledge. I didn't think twice, and I went straight to my husband to ask if anyone had been over to see him or the girls. He seemed confused, like before, and asked me why I would think that. It had just been him and the kids all day. I asked him again if someone had so much as stopped by to say hello, and he denied it. He told me to calm down. I might have lashed out and come forward with the accusations right then and there, but our older daughter was in the room, and she sensed that something was up. In a calmer voice, I asked him a 3rd time if anyone had been around our children, and my husband swore that the girls hadn't been around anyone but him. He also denied buying new clothes or doing anyone's hair. With our daughter in the room and my emotions all over the place, I decided to leave it. I couldn't make sense of it then, and it hardly seems clearer now, after I've driven myself half crazy with explanations that aren't adding up. To answer a couple of questions, my 2-year-old can only string together a couple of words at a time, and when I ask her about her time with Daddy or her clothes and bow, she answered based on the cues that I gave her. For example, who gave you that pretty bow? And she repeats, pretty bow, back to me, or Mama, Daddy, over and over. My oldest daughter, almost 4, was at the daycare that morning, and she can't recall anything different from that day. Doesn't remember the PJ change or the hair clip, so my guess is she was changed sometime that morning, but I'm not totally sure. I have a 45-minute commute to work, so stopping by for lunch isn't really feasible. My sister has been kind enough to leave work and drive past a few times here and there, and she hasn't seen anything out of the ordinary. We have a Ring camera at the front door, and I've got the app on my phone with notifications on. Nothing there yet. If anyone has any recommendations for more discreet surveillance, I would be open to it. I'm just the least tech-savvy person, and I worry that another camera will be easy to detect. And yes, we get our carbon monoxide detectors tested regularly. In the comments, someone asks, is it possible one of the hair clips came from daycare? And OP says, I could see the hair clip being a possibility, but less likely on the onesie. My younger daughter hadn't been to daycare in days, and if either one of them had returned with something like that before, I would have noticed, especially since it was the kind of onesie that I hate with a passion. People comment that they can't wait to find out the ending of this saga, and OP says, my money's on the Hollywood horror ending. Hopefully I dreamed up the dogs too, so I can finally stop picking up their imaginary shits and whatnot. Vunar says, can't wait for the season finale. I'm hoping there's a third weird thing out of place that could feasibly be linked to an affair with a lot of mental gymnastics, but doesn't really make sense. And then just as OP is about to serve her husband divorce papers, some totally benign explanation neatly ties together all 3 anomalies, and they ride off happily into the sunset with a parting message from OP to Reddit that everyone should trust their partners and stop letting the internet fill their head with stories of malicious affairs. God, the amount of times I've seen things like that just enrages me. It's either carbon monoxide poisoning or kisses. Kisses? What do they mean by kisses? I'm confused. Is it possible for you to drive by on your lunch break at work or take a half day without telling him? Plot twist, the tampons match up with his sisters and she's the one going over to sleep with him. Imagine that. For real, him insisting I leave home after all this would have me pretending to go to work and then staking out my house. Nah, just do cameras. The day she takes off work might be the day the mistress doesn't come over, etc. Your husband isn't stupid, and letting his mistress dress your baby in new clothes and hairstyle would be stupid. There is something else going on here. My theory is he sometimes hires a babysitter while he does shrooms. Lol? Or maybe he does shrooms and goes shopping. I remember once that I hid my acid while on acid and could only find it again when I took acid next. You know it's a weird one when you're rooting for husband's girlfriend is deliberately trying to screw with her mind versus she has a brain tumor and or some condition that's causing her to have memory lapses. I don't know if that's a weird one. Affairs are always better than brain tumors. Well, sure, but it feels like if this is all happening as she describes it, her husband's girlfriend would have to be downright psychotic, and that's never a good thing to have in your family's orbit and around the kids. If OP is crazy, at least meds might solve some things. If the girlfriend is crazy, who knows what she'll escalate to next? So really that's the end of that story right there, but I am segueing to another story here because this comment caught my eye and it linked me to a banger of a story. Arsenic and Tea says, now I'm reminded of the woman that went to visit family and came home to find that her roommates had turned her closet into a bathroom. Posted by user Liz Gillies, titled, I am losing my effing mind. So I was never one to believe in paranormal shit or whatever, but I have no idea what the hell is going on with me right now, and I'm genuinely considering seeking professional help. I live in a really small shared dorm apartment with 2 roommates. There's this hallway that if you face it, there are 2 bedrooms to your right, 1 bedroom to your left, and a closet at the end of the hallway facing you. The bedroom on the left is right next to the closet. When we moved in, my roommate always complained that they got a closet instead of a bathroom like me and my other roommate had in our rooms. This closet has a bunch of our shared stuff, including my clothes, gifts, keepsakes, whatever. Today I got back from visiting my parents, and I came back to put away some clothes from this closet, but I opened it and saw an effing bathroom. A bathroom with a toilet and a shower and everything. I was only gone for 2 days, and we rent this place, so it couldn't have been randomly built or some shit. I told my roommates, but they effing said it was always an effing bathroom, and they had no idea what the hell I was talking about. I can't find any of the stuff that was in that closet anymore, even though I had a shit ton of memorable keepsakes in that effing closet. What the F? I spent all day just sulking in my room, feeling miserable. I am not crazy, but that bathroom was an effing closet just 3 days ago. I feel like I'm losing my goddamn mind. I'm genuinely considering seeing a psychologist right now. This ending is insane. Edit, 15th of October. I have a brain tumor. Oh my god, I'm so sorry, OP, but wow, what a story. Look, guys, I know that last story, there isn't a definitive ending. That's because it's still ongoing, but it had an update. It did have update in the story, so am I the asshole for posting an updated story without a definitive conclusion as of yet? I don't think so, and I'm gonna defend myself on those charges. You see, Your Honor, he was simply doing it for the Vine. But of course, if there is an update in the future, I'm going to cover this one because I really want to see what the ending of that story was. Obviously not the brain tumor one. We have a definitive answer to that one, but the story before with the tampons. We can only speculate, and I really hope that it's cheating and not a brain tumor, okay? Anyway, that's where I'm going to end today's story, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. And here's a blooper, because it was going to derail the end of that story. But that bathroom was an effing closet just 3 days ago. He is not real! He is not real! That mother effer is not real! You can either believe it or you cannot believe it, but I am telling you, that guy back there...